So today I wanted to go through Sam Harris's post-mortem of the 2024 election. It's a long podcast, and I won't be going through the whole thing, but I thought I'd share my thoughts on some of it. For the first third of the podcast, Sam Harris, to his credit, accurately lays out why the left lost. He has it down to a combination of several factors.
Now, obviously, Trump's win and Harris's loss were determined by many factors. And I think everyone's in danger of believing that their pet issue explains everything that happened on Tuesday. Now, you could certainly make the case that it was immigration and the southern border, or it was inflation and the cost of groceries. You could even say it was the way Trump responded to that first assassination attempt, which, among other things, prompted Elon Musk to endorse him within minutes. Or it was Harris's weakness as a candidate and the way the Democratic Party coronated her, rather than allow some competitive process to happen. Or you could say that the blame lies with Biden himself and his disastrous decision to run for a second term. That was pure hubris. And of course, this blame extends to all the people who covered for him and lied to themselves or to the public about his competence for over a year. Some of this culpability fell on Harris herself. What did she know about Biden, and when did she know it? She never had a good answer for that question.
Then he lays into the Democrats for their embrace of identity politics and their refusal to respond to public sentiment around it.
Identity politics is over. No one wants it. Latinos and blacks don't even want it, as witnessed by the fact that they moved to Trump in record numbers. Trump got a majority of Latino men nationwide, and in some counties he got a majority of Latino men and women, even after everything he has said about immigrants from Latin America over the years. How they're, quote, poisoning the blood of our people, which is right out of Mein Kampf. A comedian calls Puerto Rico a pile of garbage at a Trump rally, and the entire Democratic machine and all of liberal media seize upon it like a nuclear bomb has just vaporized an American city, and no one cared. Identity politics is dead, and we have to bury it.
And he spends much of the first third of that podcast laying the blame squarely on transgenderism.
Having the thought police suddenly proscribe the use of the term woman and demanding that we speak instead of birthing person or menstruators or people with ovaries or some other Orwellian construction designed to test everyone's patience and sanity. We've got an epidemic of teenage girls wanting double mastectomies, and some are actually getting them based on ideas being spread on TikTok. And any parent who resists this trend gets demonized and under certain conditions could lose custody of their kids. Well, congratulations, Democrats. You have found the most annoying thing in the fucking galaxy and hung it around your necks.
And you think, wow, Sam is making a lot of sense here. I guess that's why the podcast is called Making Sense with Sam Harris. But how much longer can this go for? I mean, this doesn't sound like the Sam I know. Well, he continues roasting the left a little bit for being out of touch.
But the truth is, every shibboleth that came out of the far left in recent years contains within it the same recipe for the destruction of democratic politics. Each is like an evil hologram. I mean, take the term Latinx. Who was that for? Only 3% of Latinos are in favor of this silly rebranding of their ethnicity. Again, Trump did better among Latinos than any Republican in memory. Do you think it was because there wasn't enough identity politics rammed down their throats from the left? Do you think they just need to see some more white people admonished for the sin of cultural appropriation? You think another lecture about sensitive Halloween costumes might do the trick? Much of Democratic politics has become a bad SNL sketch.
The last third of the podcast goes full Trump derangement syndrome, and it isn't worth going over here. But the middle third is where I want to focus on, because he makes a series of claims about the media and conservatives.
Okay, I understand how infuriating this is, especially on an issue that touches your life directly. But the alternative to the failure of journalism simply isn't the fire hose of lies and half-truths and conspiracy theories that you find on X. Okay, and it's not the calculated and ever-present distortion you find in right-wing news channels that never had any journalistic standards to violate in the first place. Okay, there is simply no alternative to healthy institutions that maintain their credibility even when they make mistakes by reliably correcting their errors. Right? And when they fall short of this standard, they can be pressured to do better because they have intellectual and moral scruples. It's an imperfect process, but it's the best we've got. Elon Musk never corrects his errors. Tucker Carlson never corrects his errors. Donald Trump never makes errors because he never stops lying. He's playing tennis without the net, and his fans love it. Putting your faith in deranged personalities isn't a viable alternative to having truly liberal institutions that you can trust and that can be obliged to earn your trust back when they fail.
This, of course, is a total lie. This might be true. You might be able to sell this to me if I was born yesterday, or if I didn't experience my entire life watching how the news works. You couldn't even make this argument pre-COVID because the media was insane before that too. This is a hard sell, okay? Because they don't have intellectual and moral scruples. We don't have a media who feels obligated to earn back our trust when they fail. The entirety of politics for the last 20 years has been people on the right telling the media that they're wrong, and then the media completely ignores us and quadruples down on their lie. They call us names, they dox us, they ruin our lives, they make impassioned and orgasmic claims about democracy and how they're the ones on the side of truth, and it's the uneducated plebs who refuse to listen to them. Keep in mind, this is the same group Sam is talking about who he knows. I mean, he says that they spread obvious lies.
I know what it's like to read an article in the New York Times and to spot obvious lies.
They never self-correct, or even if they do, it's on the 27th page of the newspaper, and it's never the headline. They never swamp the coverage with how wrong they were, or show themselves apologizing and asking for forgiveness. They never bring up how wrong they were in the past about all the other issues they lied about. Nope, every issue starts fresh with a new lie. But yet he says it's the conservative media that has a calculated distortion, with the obvious implication that left-wing media is acting in good faith. But they're just making some little earnest mistakes along the way, which they hastily correct in real time. You know, they're all, back in the newsroom, they're just all tripping over each other all the time to correct the lies. Yeah, for a guy who literally wrote the book online, he's not doing so great here.
Whatever might be wrong with a person like Anthony Fauci, or Francis Collins, or any of the other doctors who have been demonized right of center for their approach to setting COVID policy, at least they are real doctors and scientists who have some professional scruples and reputations to protect among people who actually know something about medical science. RFK Jr. has none of that. He's just a cowboy taking shots at the establishment.
They literally had people looking at signs on the floor in every major building in the U.S. because of the social distancing guidelines that Fauci made. And where did he get those guidelines? Through rigorous scientific research about the behavior of respiratory illnesses? No. He just went with the power-hungry vibes, the overly cautious vibes of the scientific community. He decided to go with a consensus that came from nowhere. There was no backing for it. And yet this is the holy Anthony Fauci, the physical embodiment of the science.
The Joe Rogan podcast is not a substitute for the Wall Street Journal or the Kennedy School at Harvard. It is simply not progress to have a comedian like Dave Smith, who's apparently done his own research, interviewed about the history of the Middle East or the war in Ukraine like he's the next Henry Kissinger. All of this free access to information is making us dumber.
Is it though? When CNN says that Joe Rogan is taking horse dewormers to fight off COVID and they edit his skin color to make him look sick, is that restricted access to information, making us smarter? Was that the truth? Or was that an honest mistake from the media and they fixed it within minutes and they fired the person responsible? No, they never did that. Chris Cuomo admitted he's taking ivermectin now. Is his doctor prescribing ivermectin based on CNN's restricted information? Or was that doctor getting free access to information that says ivermectin, it works? Is his doctor smarter or dumber for doing that? I could give you 100 different examples of this happening. It's a serious problem, and it's gotten Sam another 4 years of Trump, and it's going to keep costing them elections if they don't stop it. The issues that he so bravely points out at the beginning would have never become so polarizing if the left could have just let up on the gaslighting about them even one time. But no, we had to go through this stupid, retarded cycle every time on every issue. It's not happening. Oh, well, okay, yeah, it is happening a little bit, but not that much. Oh, well, okay, yeah, it is happening that much, but here's why it's a good thing. That's the cycle. This happens every time. Immigration, inflation, Biden's mental acuity, even down to grocery prices on Thanksgiving, were all lied about 24/7 for 4 years. Every single issue Sam brought up as to why Trump won were all issues that the left lied about, nonstop, every day, all day for 4 years. Trump got shot, and they couldn't even tell the truth about that. Though he got startled by like a loud noise. They are compulsive liars. They can't help it. And contrary to what Sam would have you believe, there's no process in place for them to correct themselves. The truth has to come out on X, or Joe Rogan's podcast, or our podcast, because in traditional media, there is not one single outlet for the truth. And out of all the issues that Sam decided to rail against, notice how this wasn't one of them. Actually, this was the thing he decided to double down on and defend as being a feature and not a horrible and fatal bug. He refused to take the Hunter Biden laptop story seriously because he believed the news that it was irrelevant to Joe Biden's campaign. I've always said that the disagreement between me and other people politically is the difference in how much we trust the system. I've got no trust at all, and I'm questioning every event all the time because the media are liars. But for Sam, he trusts the media to tell him the truth. Every news story, he just starts fresh. Wow, they're telling me this. This must be true. He excuses away the minor issue of lying about everything all the time. Oh, it's just a little mistake. The left lost this election because they lie about everything, and there's no end in sight. Karine Jean-Pierre will face no consequences in her career for being DC's worst liar. There's a lot of liars in Washington, and she's the worst. Jen Psaki failed upwards to a spot on MSNBC. Did the lies around January 6th ever get corrected? No, they get repeated by Biden. He said the reason he ran against Trump in 2020 was because of the very fine people on both sides comment, which is a verifiable lie. Did he ever apologize for that? Did the free press come together and call him on it? No, they spent the next 3.5 years fluffing him, giving us hard-hitting coverage of him eating ice cream, right up until the moment he crapped his pants during the debate. The failures in the media are the point. The point of a system is what it does. The mistakes are on purpose to shape and guide the public's perception on any given event. How does Sam not know this by now? I suspect he does. How come we never got the expose on Epstein that ABC had? The anchor that reported on him said that ABC killed it. Is that some of the intellectual and moral scruples he was talking about before? The moral scruples to give cover to international child prostitution rings and the pedophiles in our elite spheres of society? Those moral scruples? Did their intellectual and moral scruples mandate them to tell the public that George Floyd had a history of swallowing pills when he got arrested, and that his drug dealer was in the car with him as he got pulled over, and that he had lethal amounts of fentanyl in his system, and that his breathing problem was consistent with an overdose, and literally had nothing to do with Derek Chauvin, and that even having a knee on your neck doesn't kill you, especially when Derek was 155 pounds and George Floyd was 6'4", 230, or that he complained about not being able to breathe even before Derek got on top of him. Did they ever feel compelled to talk about that? Tell the public that? Disclose this to the public? And stop America from having billions of dollars of property damage? Did their internal moral compasses that they're apparently so dialed into ever lead them to doing that? No. This is the problem with Sam Harris and people like him. And conservatives are dumb enough to embrace these people the moment they acknowledge just a sliver of actual reality. Yeah, he said the Democrats were dumb. But remember, he agrees with them about 99% of things. And the next thing they lie about, he'll be right there alongside them, repeating the lie. What's the point of this podcast that he did? He wants you to go back to trusting institutions again. This is the whole point of every podcast that he does. He wants you to run back into the arms of a supposedly caring and wholesome globalist elite who want the best for you. And if you just quit resisting and let them rescue you from the dangers of a burgeoning fascist movement, then everything would be okay. If you would just say, Uncle, they would quit hitting you in the face. If you would just admit that 2 + 2 = 5, then the torture would stop and we could just get on with society. Quit noticing. Throw away the red pills. Forget everything that's happened to us. Accept your fate that they've planned out for you. Big Brother knows best. The New York Times is the best we've got, he says, because the alternative is Trump and Rogan and free information and competition. It wouldn't be a monopoly anymore, and that is scary as hell to a shill for the system like Sam Harris. I made a video called The Struggle, and I'll link it below. It outlines this fear that Sam has that I'm talking about here. Sam knows everything I laid out here is true, okay? He knows that. And yet he's pushing for you to believe in lies. And that is unforgivable. Especially when the lies are responsible for the ruination of this country. He's a traitor. He's a traitor to this country and for what it stood for. That's the problem with Sam Harris. And as time goes on, he'll continue to just be a source of bad takes. And that's going to be his only role going forward. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video and type of content I'm making, please give this video a like, share it, subscribe, comment. It all helps. I will see you all in the next video. Peace.